banks will not be able to custody deal in Bitcoin. I mean, this is a big deal. You'll be able to borrow against your Bitcoin. I mean, there are a lot of good things coming that I think are going to be enormously positive. I mean, I think the volatility will be there for a while. That's not going to go away. It's going to be less. I mean, I think the biggest drawdown was like 90% in the beginning. We're never going to see one of those again. The notion of true immutable digital scarcity is a breakthrough technological notion.
Bitcoin is skyrocketing, and according to Lawrence Lepard, it's about to overtake gold, and faster than you think. With adoption rates climbing and Bitcoin set to replace gold as the dominant global asset, we're entering a new era. Could Bitcoin really hit $1 million per coin soon? Stay tuned to find out why Lepard believes this revolution is unstoppable.
There's no question that Bitcoin is superior to gold in every respect, and I believe Bitcoin is digital gold, and we live in a digital world. I think Bitcoin will replace gold fully. However, not tomorrow. 8 billion people know that gold is sound money. A few hundred million, maybe at a large number, I'd say probably even less than that, really understand that Bitcoin is sound money. And so, it's done a pretty nice job. It's $2 trillion of market cap. Gold is closer to 18, as you say, although not all of the gold's tradable. I mean, you kind of consider the central bank gold, the antiquities gold, the gold that's on women's necks in the form of jewelry. Of course, that could be tradable. You could melt down your gold necklace, but the tradable gold is more like 4 to 5 trillion. So but I think as money shifts out of other assets, both Bitcoin and gold can win, and I think both of them are going to go up in price. Just Bitcoin a lot faster, and because Bitcoin's got they both benefit from monetary debasement, but Bitcoin's got an adoption curve going on too. And so, Jesse Meyer on Twitter has a great chart that shows $900 trillion of financial assets, with real estate being half of that, the balance being stocks and bonds and gold and cash. We're at 2 trillion. So that's 2/10 of 1% is currently Bitcoin. So we got a long way to go. I mean, Bitcoin could do a 10-bagger from here, which would imply that we'd be at $1 million a coin, and we'd still only be 2% of total global assets. So this is the soundest form of money ever invented. So I think Bitcoin is going to do a 10-bagger, and I think it's going to do a 10-bagger again. But on what time frame, I don't really know. I mean, I use this kind of a lower end base case, the power law model, because it's got a lot of correlation looking backwards, and I think that shows you at $1 million in 5-6 years. But I think you probably get there faster than that. We're at that stage now, kind of the tipping point. I mean, the ETFs were a huge thing, right? And now we've got a president and administration that's crypto friendly and Bitcoin friendly. Things I heard when I was at MENA, you were there too, are that, the strategic reserve is something they're going to do. We now know, I also heard at MENA that other nation states, including the UAE, Oman, and the Saudis are all stacking Bitcoin. So, it's a coming thing, and, it might surprise us. We just don't know. We just really don't know. But in my mind, it's going to be digital gold and then some. And I think both gold and Bitcoin are going to go up a lot in nominal, fiat money terms, because, we printed a lot of fiat money, and they're going to have to print more. This is a crypto-friendly administration, though, and that's a huge positive. I mean, Operation Choke Point, will get shut down. Banks will be able to do it. SAB 121, will not get through, and so the banks will not be able to custody and deal in Bitcoin. I mean, this is a big deal. You'll be able to borrow against your Bitcoin. I mean, there are a lot of good things coming that I think are going to be enormously positive. I mean, as I said, nation states. I mean, El Salvador continues to stack, and I think there are a lot of nation states behind the scenes that are stacking, Bitcoin. So, I mean, to me, I remember Saylor saying recently, we're kind of in that golden age, gold rush of Bitcoin, the 10 years where it just does the most, the fastest. And that's kind of how it feels to me. Like we're right at that cusp of really putting up some numbers that people are like, oh my God, look at this. I mean, we're not going to stop at 100. We're going to go to 200 and then 300. And, and people are going to be like, whoa, some will continue to say it's a bubble, but it's not. It's the real deal. Having said that, there'll be volatility. I mean, you mentioned, because of the way the cycles work, because of the halving, because just people tend to get out too far over their skis, and then of course the FUD sets in and some people sell. I could easily see us in the cycle go to 300 or 400 and then correct back to 250 or something. I mean, it's that I think the volatility will be there for a while. That's not going to go away. It's going to be less. I mean, I think the biggest drawdown was like 90% in the beginning. We're never going to see one of those again. You're not going to get to buy Bitcoin 90% lower than it is today. You might get to buy it 50% lower than it is at the peak that we're heading towards. That seems possible.
Lawrence Lepard dives deep into why Bitcoin is superior to gold, explaining how Bitcoin's digital nature makes it the perfect store of value in our increasingly digital world. He believes Bitcoin's adoption curve is just beginning, with only a small fraction of the global population truly understanding its potential as sound money. Lepard predicts Bitcoin will continue to rise, potentially hitting $1 million per coin in the next few years. He also points to major global financial shifts, including the rise of Bitcoin ETFs and crypto-friendly governments, as factors that will accelerate Bitcoin's growth. But there's more. Stay tuned as Lepard reveals how this digital gold could reshape the financial world even faster than anyone expects.
That's a great question. I mean, there are a lot of things you'd love to have in an in-kind ETF. You'd love to have, no capital gains tax on Bitcoin. I mean, Trump kind of floated that in one of his conversations. I don't know. I think those might be dreams that are a little bit too far. I mean, I think they're very doable further out as Bitcoin becomes more part of the infrastructure and ecosystem. Everyone will kind of want that, and so the government will have to bend to it. But I just don't know. I mean, even the strategic reserve. I think what they're going to do, Bitcoin strategic. I think they're going to do it as an executive order. I mean, consider that, basically Nixon and Roosevelt, they didn't go through Congress to do what they did monetarily. I mean, Roosevelt grabbed gold and then revalued. Nixon broke the chain to gold at 71 and devalued. And they just did it on their own. So I think that Trump will probably do an EO where he says, we're buying Bitcoin. Now, the question is how much and from what source. And, the exchange stabilization fund's not huge and it's used for other things, but they could use it to do this. But Bitcoin was 121%. I mean, it's just, and I don't see what's going to stop it. I just don't. I see more adoption. I see more, more use cases developing all the time. So, betting against it to me just seems crazy. And to not have some, I try to tell all my clients, you don't have to go crazy on this thing. I mean, it's got a lot of upside. You can only lose 1x what you put in it. I think you can make 10x or 100x if you wait long enough. And so you need to have some, because if you don't buy it and it goes up 100x, you're going to have regret, even if it was only, 10,000, 10,000 times 100 is a big number. So, and although Bitcoin doesn't pay a yield for older people like myself, I mean, what I can envision happening if I were to stop working at some point, and I probably will, I would just sell 1% a year and use that as my living expenses. And, I don't know, what have I got, 30 years left? I mean, the balance that I didn't sell would go up in value. So every year I'd have to sell a smaller percent, right? Unless my living costs went up a lot. So, it provides you with a sense of comfort that you're never going to run out of money, which is a really fabulous thing, because I watched my dad, and I've watched most retired people kind of go through this, where, you can retire with a nice sum of money. It's your life's work, it's your savings, but you don't know how long you're going to live, and your expenses are going to increase, and it might get to the point where, geez, I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to have to really curtail my lifestyle because I haven't saved enough. And this is kind of the other side of that problem where, it goes up so much that you're unlikely to run out of money. That's the trick. That's how everybody who's ever gotten rich has gotten rich, is by having savings and allowing them to compound over time. And they save in assets or a form of money that they know will grow in value. And then they let the beauty of compounding work for them. I mean, it's amazing. I think most young people, unless they've really sat down with a calculator and played with it, they don't understand just how powerful compounding is. You just save 10% of your income. I mean, there are all these stories of people who lived very modest lives, never really made big money, but managed to save 10% of their money or sometimes more, and put it into things that went up in value, not down in value. And by the time they were in their 50s or 60s or 70s, it was kind of stunning how rich they were. So, it does work, but it requires a certain amount of discipline, and it requires putting, the key piece is it requires never losing the money and putting it into things that hold their value or go up in value, year after year. Well, investing is proof of work, and it requires patience, and it requires a long time preference. I mean, most people, anyone who's been in Bitcoin for 7 or 8 years understands this. I mean, it's no fun. I mean, the Sam Bankman-Fried episode was a good case. I mean, I'm sure every Bitcoiner took their stack and multiplied times 70,000, and then SBF blew up and Powell started tightening, and suddenly we went from 70 to 15. That's no fun. On the other hand, the way I viewed it is, well, I'm not worried about it because I know it'll be higher than 70 someday. And oh my goodness, look at this 15. Jesus, this is really cheap. What else can I sell? You know, gold, silver, some of the other stuff I have in order to buy some at 15. So yeah, I mean, but I know, I mean, I try to counsel people. I mean, the one way people do get hurt on this is they chase price near the end of an upswing, and then it corrects, and they think they made a mistake, and they're not willing to live through the correction. They're not willing to hodl. I love Sailor's, you know, the quote from Sailor where he just says, "It's going up forever, Laura." I just think that's such a great quote, because it really is. I mean, once you fully understand what it is, then you really can get behind that idea, and you can realize that, you know, I mean, look, Max thought he paid too much because Trace paid 25 cents and Max paid $1. You know, well, I thought I paid too much. My first coins were at 300 or 400, and Max paid $1. And, you know, I've got friends who I've talked into doing it. And then they look at it and they say, Jesus, you got some at 10 and 20 and 15, and how can I pay 100? And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be thinking of it in those terms. What you should be thinking of it is, if it's at $1 million in 5 years and it's at 10 million in 10 years, are you going to regret that you didn't buy some today at 100? Because that's kind of the path that I think it's on. And they, you know, but you have to understand what it is. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand how unique this thing is. The notion true immutable digital scarcity is a breakthrough technological notion. It's never existed before. Every form of money, including gold, been around in human existence, has been dilutable. That is, they could make more of it so that each unit was worth less. And in the case of gold, that happens at 1.7% a year. The supply grows. And, you know, in the case of Bitcoin right now, it's 0.8, and every 4 years it gets cut in half. So it doesn't matter where the price goes. That supply curve is not changing. And that's the part I think so many normies and or, you know, traditional investors, they just miss that. They don't really understand.
Lawrence Lepard's vision of Bitcoin overtaking gold and becoming the cornerstone of global wealth is not just a theory, it's happening now. With massive adoption on the horizon and Bitcoin's unmatched scarcity, the future looks incredibly bright. If you want to stay ahead in the world of finance, make sure to subscribe for more expert insights and updates on the Bitcoin revolution. See you in the next one.